A Galactic Empire's Debate on Humanity. Expanded scene summary. Within the towering chambers of the Rigellian High Council, a gravity hung in the air, as though even the council itself recognized the gravity of what was at stake. The high walls, lined with gleaming metallic carvings of Rigellian conquests and achievements, served as silent witnesses to the urgent assembly. A call had been issued to every notable leader, advisor, and strategist within the Rigellian Empire. They were to debate a species that, on the surface, seemed insignificant yet had somehow become a growing concern: the humans. Humanity, with their unrefined technology and bizarre customs, had crossed a line. Reports from scouts and ambassadors hinted at humans pushing it into restricted star systems, surviving harsh planetary environments, and even forming alliances with species who'd previously kept to themselves. Rigellian historians account an elder historian, known for his vast knowledge of galactic species, stood at the forefront of the chamber. His scales, a deep violet faded with age, shimmered faintly under the council's light. "Humans," he began in a measured tone, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "They are a species defined by paradox. They are as chaotic as they are resourceful, as destructive as they are creative. They have fought wars amongst themselves that would have ended lesser species. They have ravaged their home planet with pollution, risen from global pandemics, and adapted to live in conditions that would horrify most sentient beings." His eyes narrowed, his tone more somber. "The troubling part, my esteemed colleagues, is that they seem to thrive on this chaos. Destruction for them is not an end but a beginning." His words struck a nerve with the council. A murmur rippled through the audience as council members exchanged uneasy glances. The historian continued, "I have studied 1,000 species. I have read of their growth, their fall, and their rise again, but never have I encountered a species that seems so comfortable with the brink of annihilation. It is as if the void of destruction only emboldens them." General's tactical analysis. A Rigellian general, clad in ceremonial armor that gleamed darkly under the council lights, stepped forward next. His gaze was sharp, unyielding. "These humans, though technologically inferior, act as if the universe's dangers do not apply to them," he said, his voice as sharp as the blade at his side. "They expand, ignoring warnings, crossing boundaries without hesitation. They colonize worlds others deemed uninhabitable. They use tactics in battle that seem reckless, yet they somehow succeed. Their ships may be fragile, their weapons crude, but they don't seem to care." He paused, his scales shifting in discomfort. "They don't fight to win, they fight because somehow they don't believe in losing. And if they lose, they just start again, as if defeat was never a deterrent at all." Another murmur spread across the room as the general's words sank in. The Rigellians prided themselves on order, on careful strategy, on avoiding unnecessary risks. To them, this human tendency toward defiance, toward leaping without looking, was deeply unsettling. Diplomatic implications. A diplomatic advisor, with smooth, silver scales that marked her role as a negotiator, addressed the council. "The humans are spreading their influence," she began. "Already, there are reports of neighboring systems expressing admiration for them, alliances being whispered, sympathies growing. Our longtime allies in the Vasher system have even hinted that they might consider a cultural exchange with humanity. We risk an ideological shift across the galaxy if humans are allowed to continue their path unchecked." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the council. "It is not their strength that threatens us, it is their example. They defy the laws of our galaxy's order with an audacity we haven't encountered in eons. If they go unchallenged, what message does it send to others?" The decision. After hours of impassioned arguments, the High Council was on the edge of a decision. Some members argued that humanity was a fleeting annoyance, a minor species who would inevitably bring ruin upon themselves. But others, particularly those who had studied humanity's history, argued otherwise. This was a species that welcomed disaster, learned from it, and emerged stronger. With quiet finality, the council concluded that humanity must be reminded of its place. As the Rigellians prepared to take action, there was an undercurrent of fear that none dared speak aloud. In the minds of some, the decision felt incomplete, as though they were moving against a force they couldn't entirely understand. A dark question lingered: would attempting to subdue humanity only reveal their own weakness? Ending sentence for point 1. As the council doors closed behind them, the elder historian lingered a moment longer, staring out into the vast galaxy. His final words, uttered in a voice barely more than a whisper, left an unsettling chill in the chamber. They are different, yes. And that difference may prove costly. But do not mistake their small size or strange ways as weakness. The humans have one trait that terrifies even the cosmos itself: they refuse to die quietly, to a show of power in Earth's orbit. Expanded scene summary: the Rigellian fleet surged into Earth's orbit with practiced precision, each ship an embodiment of dark, metallic perfection. The Rigellians, a species renowned for their advanced technology and mastery over interstellar warfare, had prepared for this confrontation meticulously. The armada stretched across Earth's sky like a metallic blanket, vast and ominous, casting shadows that reached down to Earth's surface. The sheer number of vessels sent a clear message: submission was the only option. The Rigellians had faced hundreds of planetary insurrections before, but never against a species as young, reckless, and untamed as humanity. To them, humans were naive creatures who barely understood the magnitude of their own actions, too audacious and stubborn to see that they had invited a giant upon themselves. Initial Rigellian expectations on the Rigellian flagship. The High Commander observed the planet below through a vast viewport, his gaze cold and calculating. He expected fear, chaos, and the desperate pleas for mercy that other species typically displayed when faced with the Empire's superior might. He imagined humans scurrying in terror, leaders sending frantic transmissions begging for diplomacy or surrender. After all, every other species had buckled in the face of the Rigellian military machine. Humanity, the commander assumed, would be no different. He had little patience for this species and was eager to assert the Empire's control, to remind them of their place in the galaxy. Human response instead, the response that came through the transmission channels, was unlike anything the commander had ever witnessed. The screen flickered to life, revealing a human figure seated casually at a desk, surrounded by clutter that bore none of the formal decorum the commander expected. The human wore a well-worn leather jacket, a smile tugging at his lips. There was an ease to him, an almost disinterested air, as if he were unaware of the colossal fleet hovering in his planet's orbit. For a brief moment, the commander thought the transmission must have been intercepted by an uninformed civilian. But the human introduced himself as the leader of Earth's defense initiative. Defiant conversation begins. The commander, barely masking his irritation, began his ultimatum. Human, he said with a voice as cold as the void of space, you stand before the might of the Rigellian Empire. Your species has violated galactic protocols, trespassed in restricted systems, and demonstrated a flagrant disregard for interstellar order. We are here to impose discipline. Surrender now, and we may show mercy. The human tilted his head, taking a casual sip from a mug that bore a picture of what the commander guessed was a dog, a strange human creature. The human's response, however, was equally strange, calm, even amused. Discipline, he repeated, feigning innocence. Oh, see, we didn't get the memo. We just figured the stars were open for exploration. A bit of an oversight on your part, don't you think? This insolence, this utter disregard for the fearsome armada above, sent a ripple of disbelief through the Rigellian crew. The commander's mandibles clicked in frustration. Do you truly not understand, human? He spat. We could obliterate your world in a heartbeat. Your people would be nothing but ashes drifting in space. Human Defiance explained. The human's expression shifted slightly, the amusement tempered by something that looked oddly like sympathy. I understand perfectly, he replied, his voice steady. But I don't think you get us. You see, threats don't work on us, because it didn't matter if someone had the upper hand, if they had the bigger gun, or if they could turn us to dust. Humans don't know how to back down. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. We're stubborn, we're resourceful, and we don't believe in losing. You might be able to destroy us, but we'd make sure you'd never forget us. The moment you fire, you'll make us martyrs, we'll become legends, symbols for everyone out there who's been pushed around by the likes of you. Commander's realization. The commander felt an uncharacteristic chill. This was not the reaction he had expected. The human's words were not boastful, not bluster, they were spoken with a quiet conviction that unsettled him to his core. Rigellian strategy relied on instilling terror, on using overwhelming power to make resistance unthinkable. But here was a species that seemed to welcome the very possibility of annihilation as if it only fueled their resolve. Alliance proposal. Weighing his options, the commander realized the truth: destroying Earth would be easy, but the consequences of doing so might ripple through the galaxy, inspiring others to defy Rigellian authority. This wasn't the type of rebellion that could be crushed with one decisive blow. With a wary respect now settling in his gaze, the commander chose diplomacy over destruction. Perhaps. We have misunderstood each other, he conceded, his tone laced with reluctant admiration. Perhaps an alliance would serve both our interests. The human nodded, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Now you're talking sense, he said, raising his mug in a mock salute. Turns out things work better when you don't try to scare us into submission. Ending sentence for point 2. As the human signed off and the Rigellian fleet prepared to negotiate, the High Commander stood silent, a lingering unease settling over him. For the first time, he understood that humanity was not just another species to be conquered, but they were a force to be reckoned with, a force that did not bow to threats, and perhaps one that the galaxy would have to learn to live with, or risk awakening something even the Rigellians were not prepared to face. 3. The chilling human philosophy of resilience. Expanded scene summary. Frustration simmered in the Rigellian commander as he stared at the human's image on the holographic display. The human's calm defiance had thrown him off balance, yet he couldn't deny his curiosity. He demanded an explanation for humanity's inexplicable lack of fear, the unshakable calm in the face of such overwhelming power. Why did they remain so undeterred? In response, the human began to share humanity's journey, a narrative unlike anything the commander had encountered in his centuries of service. Leaning forward, the human recounted Earth's history, his tone neither boastful nor defiant, but laced with a quiet pride. He spoke of millennia of struggle, civilizations rising and falling, cataclysmic wars, natural disasters, famine, and disease. Each event could have ended them, but each time, humanity clawed its way back, learning and adapting as they did so. We faced extinction countless times, the human explained. Our own conflicts, nature's wrath, even our own mistakes. And every time we came back stronger. The Rigellian commander listened, skeptical yet transfixed. Species faced hardships that was universal, but there was a terrifying pattern to humanity's resilience that felt almost unnatural. Most species adapted to survive within predictable parameters. But humans, it seemed, adapted because of catastrophe. The concept was deeply unsettling. Destruction was an obstacle, a deterrent to any other species he had encountered. For humans, it was a catalyst. Stories of catastrophe and renewal. The human continued, recounting harrowing episodes from Earth's past. He spoke of a great war fought between nations, a conflict of unprecedented scale that nearly tore the world apart. Yet in the aftermath, humanity had rebuilt, their societies stronger and more interconnected than ever before. He told of a global pandemic that swept across the world, leaving millions dead. But rather than fall into chaos, humanity adapted, pushing their science and technology forward to combat future threats. Each catastrophe became a chapter in their legacy, a story of loss that inevitably gave way to growth and innovation. The commander's unease grew as he realized the depth of this pattern. To humans, he now understood, even the worst disasters were simply obstacles to overcome. In the Rigellian way of thinking, such resilience bordered on madness. Where other species would retreat, humans pushed forward. Where others would break, humans evolved. The human looked directly into the commander's eyes through the hologram, as if to ensure that his next words would be taken to heart. Humanity's unique drive. You think that because you have the power to destroy us, you hold the upper hand, the human said quietly, his gaze unwavering. But for us, survival isn't about avoiding danger. It's about what we do when we're standing on the edge. Our history is a series of moments where we were nearly wiped out and then we found a way to come back. We'll fight if we have to, and if we lose, we'll find a way to make it count. We'll be back again. Stronger. The commander's mind raced. To him, survival meant maintaining the status quo, preserving order. But here was a species that thrived in chaos, one that seemed to grow more formidable in the face of destruction. Destroying them would not be an ending it, it would only lay the foundation for something unpredictable, something that could spiral beyond Rigellian control. He felt a chill that no armor could shield him from. In their obsession with order, the Rigellians had forgotten what it meant to face beings who refused to stay down, who would rebuild from their own ashes. The commander's realization for a moment, the commander considered his options. He could proceed with his orders, decimate Earth and wipe humanity from existence. Yet, as he stood there, he knew that eliminating this species would only sow the seeds of something far worse, a legacy, an inspiration for rebellion across the galaxy. By trying to silence humanity, he might only make them louder. Reluctantly, he felt his resolve falter. This was not a species that could be subdued with brute force. In their defiance, he saw the spark of something that could destabilize the galaxy, a force that refused to be tamed. He understood then that humanity had survived not because they were powerful, but because they were relentless. Ending sentence for point 3, as the commander finally lowered his gaze, he recognized a truth that gnawed at him. Humanity was not just a resilient species, they were a living testament to survival itself. Any attempt to crush them would only ensure their story lived on, a legend of defiance, echoing through the galaxy, inspiring those who had been silent for too long. And as the hologram faded, the commander was left with a single, haunting thought. Perhaps it was the Rigellian Empire that needed to fear the humans, not the other way around. For an uneasy truce, and a lasting legacy. Expanded scene summary. The Rigellian High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring into the depths of space as the human delegation prepared to land on the Rigellian homeworld for the next round of negotiations. The tension between the two species had shifted, no longer a matter of brute strength but of mutual respect forged in the fires of conflict. He had ordered the ceasefire, but the commander couldn't deny the unease gnawing at him. What had been an easy victory for the Rigellian Empire had turned into a delicate, precarious dance. Humanity was unlike any species the Rigellians had encountered, and now he was left to wonder how their shared history would unfold. No one had expected the humans to stand their ground, let alone drive the most powerful empire in the galaxy to the negotiation table. Terms of the truce. As the human diplomats arrived, the commander met them in a stark, sterile room aboard the flagship. It was a neutral space, stripped of the usual grandeur and intimidation that marked Rigellian authority. The human representatives, though physically smaller and far less imposing than the Rigellians, walked into the room with an air of calm resolve that unsettled the commander. They were not nervous, they did not cower. They were not even particularly formal in their demeanor. The talks began with tense, measured words, but both sides knew the truth. This truce was born not out of mutual respect, but out of necessity. Humanity had proven they could endure, and now the Rigellians were forced to acknowledge it. Earth would remain sovereign, untouched by Rigellian hands, and the humans would agree to a non-interference clause in certain systems, though they would not cede any more territory to the Rigellian Empire. However, the most significant part of the agreement was a limited but significant exchange of technologies, knowledge, and cultural insights. The Rigellians, with their vast technological prowess, would share some of their advancements with humanity, and in return, humanity would offer something the Rigellians had not anticipated: their creativity, adaptability, and unyielding spirit. This wasn't just a treaty of power, it was a recognition of something far more dangerous: humanity's potential. They were not a species to be dominated. They were a species that would thrive, regardless of the odds, and there was no empire that could stand in the way of that. The human legacy of Defiance. As the discussions unfolded, the commander could feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It was not the cold, transactional air of typical negotiations, but something more profound. The human representatives spoke less of military might and more of philosophy about what it meant to be human in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Their words, though simple, carried weight. They spoke of resilience, of survival not just through strength, but through adaptability. "We don't conquer the stars," one human diplomat said, "but we learn to live in them. We fail, we fall, but we always find a way back up. And that's what makes us dangerous." For the first time, the commander was not just listening to a species on the verge of extinction, but to a species that had learned to live through extinction. The thought unsettled him. It was not power that made humans formidable, but their willingness to embrace loss, to rebuild, and to turn failure into a foundation for future triumphs. For the Rigellians, who prided themselves on order, structure, and an ability to maintain control, this was an alien concept. And yet, the human drive was undeniable, an essence the Rigellians had failed to comprehend before the negotiation began. The aftermath and unintended influence word of the truce spread far beyond the borders of Rigellian space. Within days, rumors of humanity's resilience reached the outermost colonies of the galaxy. Other species, who had long suffered under the oppression of the Rigellian Empire, began to wonder if they too might defy the great power that had ruled them for centuries. A spark of rebellion ignited in the hearts of the oppressed. What had been a local skirmish turned into a galactic movement. Earth's defiance had sparked something larger than themselves, a beacon of hope for the oppressed and the broken across the galaxy. The Rigellian Empire, though unwilling to admit it, found itself facing a growing wave of dissent. The commander watched as more and more systems pushed back against their rule. The humans had done what no one else had been able to. They had shown the galaxy that an empire could be challenged, and perhaps even toppled. The commander could feel it in the air, an undercurrent of fear that the Rigellians had not known in centuries. Their empire, built on fear, might now face the greatest challenge of all, the belief that the galaxy didn't have to live in fear of them. A Rigellian shift in perspective. In the halls of the Rigellian High Council, debates raged over the implications of the human truce. Some of the older council members, who had served the Empire for centuries, clung to the old ways, insisting that the human issue be dealt with swiftly, that their defiance be crushed before it could spread. But there were whispers, growing louder, from younger, more progressive council members who saw the humans not as a threat, but as a potential ally. Humanity's drive, their refusal to bend or break, had begun to change the conversation. Some even began to question if the Rigellian centuries-long policy of domination was the true path forward, or if there was a new way of coexistence and understanding that could lead to a new kind of galactic order. Ending sentence for point 4. As the commander looked out at the stars, his thoughts lingered on the strange, unexpected lesson humanity had taught him, that true power wasn't about control or domination. It was about resilience, adaptability, and the refusal to ever give up. And for the first time, he wondered if the Rigellian Empire's greatest enemy wasn't a rival species or a superweapon, but the very human spirit that could never be extinguished, no matter how many times it was crushed. Perhaps, he mused, the true threat is not their rebellion, but their example. Counsel of the entire story. The Rigellian Empire, an advanced and powerful species, attempts to subdue humanity after discovering Earth's defiance in galactic matters. The Rigellian High Commander arrives in Earth's orbit with a massive fleet, expecting the humans to cower in fear, as other species have done. However, the humans, led by a confident representative, reject the idea of submission and respond with calm defiance. Their leader explains that humanity's strength lies not in power, but in resilience, the ability to adapt and survive even the most catastrophic events. As the Rigellians press their demands, the human philosophy of defiance resonates deeply with the commander. He realizes that humans do not fear destruction. In fact, they thrive on overcoming it. This unexpected resilience forces the Rigellian commander to reconsider his approach, ultimately leading to a truce. Earth remains sovereign, and an uneasy peace is brokered, with both sides agreeing to share certain technologies. The story of humanity's defiance spreads across the galaxy, inspiring other oppressed species to rise up. As Rigellian control weakens, the Empire's leadership begins to question its long-standing policy of domination. The commander, now understanding humanity's true strength, reflects on how their relentless spirit could not only survive but become a symbol of rebellion for the galaxy. The legacy of humanity's defiance becomes a catalyst for change, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy.